There is a name that nobody says out loud. Not in the great halls of the Galactic Council. Not in the war rooms of the most powerful commanders in the known universe. Not even in the darkest corners of deep space, where criminals and rebels whisper secrets they would die to protect. Nobody says her name. And here is the shocking part. She wants it that way. Right now, somewhere beyond the edge of what humans call the Milky Way, there is a queen. She sits on no throne that any map can show. She commands no fleet that any radar can track. She holds no title that any government will admit exists. But she controls everything, every war that started in the last 1,000 years. She allowed it. Every peace treaty that was signed across 50 star systems. She approved it. Every civilization that rose to power and every empire that quietly collapsed. She decided it. And the most terrifying part of all this? Nobody was supposed to find out. But one man did. A regular human. From Earth. With no special powers, no political connections, and absolutely no plan. He found out by accident, and what he discovered will change the way you think about power, about the universe, and about what it really means to be human. In this story, you will learn 3 things that will shake you to your core. First, the truth about who actually runs this galaxy. Second, why the most powerful being in existence chose to stay completely invisible. And third, how one ordinary human man became the only person outside her inner circle to ever learn the truth and live to tell it. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Marcus Cole was not a hero. He was not a soldier. He was not a scientist. He was not some chosen one from an ancient prophecy written in starfire on the walls of a forgotten temple. He was a trader, a small-time, barely making ends meet, flying a ship that should have been retired 15 years ago kind of trader. His vessel was called the Rusted Anchor. And that name was not a joke. The left engine coughed every time he pushed past half speed. The navigation computer was so old it still used star maps from before 3 entire solar systems had been discovered. The cargo hold smelled like something had died in it once. And nobody had ever fully figured out what. But Marcus loved that ship. He had been flying it for 11 years across the outer rim trade routes, picking up cheap goods from struggling colonies, delivering them to stations that paid just enough to keep the fuel tanks full and the food supply stocked. It was not a glamorous life. But it was his life. On the morning that everything changed, Marcus was running a simple delivery. 40 crates of hydration tablets. Boring. Common. Exactly the kind of job he took when nothing better was available. The destination was a small station called Outpost Vereen. It sat on the edge of the Delnari corridor, a stretch of space that most traders avoided because the gravitational currents were unpredictable, and the local authorities were even less predictable. But the pay was good. So Marcus went. He dropped out of faster-than-light travel about 3 hours from Outpost Vereen. Standard procedure. You never jumped all the way to your destination in that part of space. Too risky. Too many things that sensors could not pick up until it was too late. He was cruising at half speed, humming an old song from back home in Sheffield, England, when the proximity alarm went off. Something was in his path. Marcus cut the engines immediately. He leaned forward in the pilot seat and squinted at the scanner screen. The old display flickered twice before it showed him what was out there. A pod. A small escape pod. Drifting. No engine signature, no power reading. Almost completely invisible to standard sensors, which was why he nearly flew straight through it. He almost ignored it. Out here, you saw debris all the time. Old pods. Dead satellites. Broken ship pieces. The outer rim was basically a graveyard of things people had left behind, or lost or simply abandoned. But something made him look closer. He switched to the visual scanner and zoomed in. And he saw them. Inside the pod, pressed against the small round window, were 2 faces. Children. 2 small girls. No older than 9 or 10, by the look of them. Their skin was a deep, smooth blue, the color of the ocean just before a storm. Their eyes were large, too large for their faces, in the way that made them look ancient and young at the same time. Their hair was dark, and braided tight against their heads. They were alive. They were scared. And they were staring straight at him. Marcus did not think twice. He brought the pod in through the cargo bay. The magnetic lock engaged with a loud clunk that echoed through the whole ship. He climbed down from the cockpit, walked through the cargo hold past all 40 crates of hydration tablets, and stood in front of the pod door. He knocked. "Hey," he said, feeling slightly ridiculous for knocking on an escape pod. "I am not going to hurt you. You are safe. I am going to open this door now. Okay?" Silence. Then, very softly, a small voice from inside said something in a language he did not recognize. Marcus opened the pod door. The two girls were huddled together at the back of the tiny pod. They were wearing what looked like military-grade survival suits, but scaled down to their size. That detail alone told Marcus something was different about them. Survival suits like that cost more than his entire ship. He crouched down so he was at their eye level. "My name is Marcus," he said slowly. "I am human. From Earth. Do you understand me?" The taller of the two girls studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke again in that unfamiliar language. The shorter one tugged at her sleeve and whispered something. The taller girl looked back at Marcus. "We understand," she said. Her English was perfect. No accent, no hesitation. Perfect. That surprised him. But he kept his face calm. "Good," he said. "Are you hurt?" "No," the taller girl said. "Are you hungry?" A pause, then the shorter girl nodded. Very quickly, just once. Marcus almost smiled. "Okay. Come on. I have food. Nothing fancy. But it is hot." He stood up and walked toward the ship's small kitchen. After a moment he heard 2 sets of small feet following him. He made protein rations and heated them in the unit that took 4 minutes longer than it was supposed to, because the heating coil was half broken. He set 2 portions on the table and sat across from the girls as they ate. They ate carefully, controlled, like they had been trained not to show hunger even when they felt it. That detail stayed with Marcus. Children did not eat like that naturally. That kind of control was taught. "What are your names?" he asked. The taller girl looked at the shorter one. Some silent conversation passed between them. Then she looked back at Marcus. "I am Selah," she said. "She is Nara. Where are your parents?" Another silent exchange. "Gone," Selah said. Her voice did not crack. It was flat and certain in the way that hurt more than crying would have. Marcus nodded slowly. He did not push. "Where were you trying to go?" he asked instead. "Anywhere safe," Selah said. Marcus looked at the 2 girls. The blue skin, the oversized eyes, the expensive survival suits, the perfect English with no taught accent, the controlled way they carried themselves even while being clearly exhausted and frightened. He thought about the escape pod that had been nearly invisible to sensors. Military-grade stealth coating on an escape pod meant for children. Something was very wrong here. Or rather, something was very important here. And Marcus was experienced enough in the outer rim to know the difference between a problem and a secret. Problems could be solved. Secrets could get you killed. He looked at the girls one more time. "Okay," he said. "You can stay on the ship. I have one rule. If I ask you a question, and it matters, you answer me honestly. Can you do that?" Selah met his eyes without blinking. "We can try," she said. Marcus nodded. He cleaned up the table and went back to the cockpit to restart the engines. He had a delivery to finish. 40 crates of hydration tablets. Simple job. Except now he had 2 mysterious alien children in his cargo hold, and somewhere deep in his gut, in that place where 11 years of outer rim experience lived, he felt the very clear and very uncomfortable feeling that his simple job had just become something else entirely. He just did not know yet how far that something else would go. He pointed the rusted anchor back toward Outpost Vereen and pushed the engines to half speed. Behind him, somewhere in the ship, he could hear the 2 girls talking quietly to each other in that language he did not recognize. He would later learn that language was spoken in only one place in the entire galaxy. The royal palace of the Zelhara Empire, the most powerful and most secret empire that had ever existed. And those two little girls were not just survivors. They were its princesses. Marcus delivered the hydration tablets. He docked at Outpost Vereen, unloaded the crates, collected his payment, and said nothing to anyone about the two girls hiding in the back of his ship. He told himself that was just common sense. Out here on the outer rim, you did not volunteer information. You did not wave your arms and announce complications. You kept your head down, finished your work, and minded your business. That was how you stayed alive and free, and relatively unbothered for 11 years in the most lawless stretch of space in the galaxy. So Marcus kept quiet. He restocked the ship, bought enough food for 3 people instead of 1, which was not something he had done in a long time. He paid in cash credits so there was no digital record. Then he went back to the rusted anchor, locked the docking bay door behind him, and sat down with Sayla and Nara at the kitchen table. "Okay," he said. "Talk to me." Sayla looked at him. She had slept. Both girls had. They looked less terrified now, though the careful watchfulness in their eyes had not gone away. "What do you want to know?" Sayla asked. "Everything," Marcus said. "Start at the beginning." Sayla was quiet for a moment. She glanced at Nara, who was sitting very still with both hands folded on the table. Nara gave a small nod. Sayla took a breath. "Our mother sent us away," she said. 3 days ago. There was an attack on the Central Palace. It came without warning. Guards we trusted turned against us. "A betrayal," Marcus said. "Yes." "Who attacked?" "The Velthari Collective," Sayla said. Her voice tightened slightly on the name. "They have been trying to find us for a long time." Marcus had heard of the Velthari Collective. Most traders had. They were a coalition of warlords and power brokers who controlled the mid-rim. Rich. Ruthless. Organized. They had a reputation for destroying anything that got in the way of their expansion. "Why would the Velthari want to attack you?" Marcus asked carefully. Sayla looked at him for a long moment. "Because of who our mother is," she said. "And who is your mother?" Nara, who had not spoken since that first day, suddenly looked up at Marcus directly. Her large eyes were calm. Older than her face. "She is the one who keeps the balance," Nara said quietly. Her voice was softer than Sayla's, but there was something in it that made Marcus sit up straighter without meaning to. "The balance of what?" he asked. "Everything," Nara said. Marcus looked between the two girls. He was a practical man. He dealt in facts and cargo weights and fuel calculations. He did not have much patience for vague answers. But something about the way Nara said that single word made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "I need something more specific than everything," he said. Sayla took over again. "Our mother controls the flow of information between the 12 major powers of this galaxy. Every government, every military, every trade federation, they all operate because she allows it. She decides what alliances are made. She decides what wars end. She holds secrets that would destroy half the governments in existence if they were ever revealed." Marcus stared at her. "And nobody knows about her?" he said. "Almost nobody," Sayla said. She made sure of that. It was her greatest protection. You cannot destroy what you cannot see. You cannot fight what you do not know exists. "But the Velthari found out," Marcus said. "Someone told them," Sayla said. Her jaw tightened. "Someone from inside." Marcus leaned back in his chair. He looked up at the low ceiling of his ship and thought about everything he had just heard. He was a trader. A small-time outer rim trader with a broken heating coil and a navigation computer that was practically an antique. And somehow he was sitting across from the daughters of the most powerful being in the galaxy. "Where is your mother now?" he asked. "We do not know," Sayla said. "She sent us away before the attack reached the inner chambers. She said she would find us when it was safe. She said to trust no one," Nara added. "Except someone who helped us without asking for anything first." Both girls looked at him. Marcus understood what that meant. He rubbed the back of his neck. "So she had a plan," he said. "She always has a plan," Sayla said. And for the first time, just barely, something that might have been a small smile crossed her face. Marcus nodded slowly. "All right. So what do we do now?" "We need to get to the Anhari station," Sayla said. "It is beyond the outer rim, past the Velthari patrol zones. Our mother has contacts there, people who will know what to do. Marcus pulled up the navigation on his old computer. He found Anhari Station after a long search. It was listed as decommissioned, officially abandoned, off the main charts, exactly the kind of place someone very powerful and very invisible would use as a safe contact point. That is a 12-day journey, Marcus said. Through Velthari space. Yes, Sela said simply. And your mother's enemies are actively looking for you right now, Marcus said. Yes, Sela said again. And my ship is old and slow and barely holding together. We noticed, Sela said. Marcus laughed. He could not help it. It came out short and surprised, and it echoed in the small kitchen. Sela looked startled. Then Nara made a tiny sound that might have been a laugh too. Marcus stood up and pushed his chair back. 12 days, he said. Through Velthari space. In a ship that the Velthari will not bother scanning because it is too embarrassing to even be associated with. He paused. Actually, that might work in our favor. He went back to the cockpit. He plugged in the coordinates for Anhari Station. The navigation computer took 45 seconds to process them, which was 43 seconds longer than a modern system would take. The engines coughed when he powered them up. But they held. The rusted anchor pulled away from Outpost Vereen and pointed its nose toward the deep dark. In the kitchen behind him, 2 alien princesses sat quietly at a table that still had the remains of heated protein rations on it. And somewhere out there, far beyond what any map showed, their mother was waiting, watching, planning, as she always did. Marcus did not know it yet, but this 12-day journey was not going to happen by accident. Nothing about any of this was an accident. Every single moment had been arranged. By the one person in the galaxy who arranged everything. Day 3 into the journey, they ran into trouble. Marcus had expected it. He would have been more surprised if things had stayed quiet. Nothing in the outer rim ever stayed quiet for long. The trouble came in the form of a Velthari patrol cruiser. It was 3 times the size of the rusted anchor, and it dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of them with the aggressive precision of a ship that had been tracking them for a while. The communication channel opened without Marcus requesting it. A voice came through. Cold. Professional. The voice of someone who gave orders for a living and had never once been told no. Unidentified cargo vessel. Cut your engines and prepare for boarding inspection. This is a Velthari collective security patrol. Non-compliance will be treated as hostile action. Marcus cut the engines. He turned in his seat and looked back toward the corridor. Sela was already standing there. She had heard everything. Hide, he said. Both of you. Now. Where? Sela asked. Marcus pointed to the floor of the cargo hold. There was a maintenance crawl space beneath the deck plates that he used to store emergency equipment, and the occasional goods he preferred not to declare. It was tight. It was uncomfortable. But it was completely invisible to standard scanning equipment. Sela grabbed Nara's hand and moved without another word. Marcus heard the deck plates lift and close behind them. He took a breath. Then he opened the communication channel. Patrol vessel, this is Marcus Cole aboard the rusted anchor. Registered independent trader out of the mid-rim. I am complying fully. I have a cargo of industrial parts and food supplies. Nothing exciting. A pause. Maintain position. Boarding team is inbound. 3 Velthari soldiers came aboard. They were big, armored in the flat gray of Velthari military gear, which always reminded Marcus of something that was trying very hard to look intimidating and succeeding. The team leader was a tall woman with a scar running from her left ear to the corner of her mouth. She looked at Marcus the way people look at something unimportant, then looked around the ship with the slow, thorough attention of someone who was genuinely searching. Standard inspection, she said. Open all compartments. Marcus opened everything. Cargo hold, supply room, engine access panel, both sleeping quarters. He moved casually, talked casually, made a small joke about the heating coil that nobody laughed at. One of the soldiers walked the cargo hold twice. He stopped at the back section. Marcus kept his breathing even. The soldier scanned the floor plates. The scanner beeped green. Not because there was nothing there, but because the stealth coating on those 2 survival suits the girls were wearing also disrupted standard scan frequencies. Marcus had not known that when he hid them. But someone had known. Someone had put those suits on those girls knowing exactly what kind of scanner a Velthari patrol would use. The team leader looked at Marcus for a long moment. "What is your destination?" she asked. "Station Vereen North," Marcus said. The name of a real station 2 days in the wrong direction. Delivering food supplies for a colony contract. She stared at him. Marcus held eye contact. He had spent 11 years learning how to look like a man with nothing to hide. It was one of his most valuable skills. "Check the engine logs," she said to one of her soldiers. The soldier pulled up the rusted anchor's navigation history on the cockpit terminal. It showed exactly what Marcus had set it to show before he left Outpost Vereen. A long, boring history of short delivery runs. Nothing unusual. Nothing connecting him to anything that would interest the Velthari. The team leader seemed satisfied. But not completely. She looked at Marcus one last time. "You have not seen any small vessels in this corridor? Escape pods? Anything adrift?" "Not a thing," Marcus said. "Honestly, you are the most exciting thing I have encountered out here in a week." She did not find that funny either. But she left. All 3 soldiers went back to their cruiser. The docking connection disengaged. The patrol vessel moved away and disappeared back into faster-than-light travel within 3 minutes. Marcus sat very still in the cockpit for about 30 seconds. Then, he let out a breath that felt like it had been sitting in his chest for an hour. He went back to the cargo hold and knocked on the deck plate. "They are gone." The plate lifted. Sela climbed out first, then helped Nara up. Nara's expression had not changed. Sela, for the first time, looked shaken, just slightly, around the edges. "You were good," Sela said to Marcus. "You were very calm." 11 years of practice, Marcus said. He looked at the survival suits they were wearing. Those suits, the scan blocking. That was designed for Velthari frequencies. Sela did not answer immediately. "Your mother gave you those suits," Marcus said. It was not a question. "Yes," Sela said. "She knew you would run into Velthari patrols. She knows where every patrol in this corridor is," Sela said quietly. "She always has." Marcus looked at the girl. "She knew you would end up on my ship," he said slowly. "Didn't she?" Sela met his eyes. She did not say yes. But she did not say no either. Marcus looked away. He looked at the navigation screen. 9 more days to Anhari Station. He thought about the escape pod that had been placed in exactly the right spot for his specific flight path. He thought about survival suits designed for exactly the threats they had encountered. He thought about a queen who controlled the flow of information across an entire galaxy. He thought about how none of this was an accident. And he thought about what that meant. Because if she knew he would find the girls, and she knew the patrol would come, and she had equipped her daughters for exactly this journey, then she was not just hiding. She was orchestrating. Every piece of this was a move on a board that Marcus could not even see the edges of. He was not a rescuer. He was a chosen piece. And the most powerful queen in the galaxy had picked him for a reason. He just did not know what that reason was yet. He sat back down in the pilot seat. He pushed the engines back to half speed. The rusted anchor moved forward through the dark. And somewhere, impossibly far away and somehow very close, something watched their progress with calm, ancient eyes. And was satisfied. Day 7. Marcus had not slept properly in 4 days. Not because of danger, though danger was always a background noise out here. Not because of engine trouble, though the left engine had started making a new sound on day 5 that he was deliberately not thinking about too hard. He could not sleep because of the questions. They stacked up in his head at night like unpaid bills, each one leading to another, each answer creating 3 more questions. He would close his eyes, and instead of darkness he would see the scan blocking survival suits, and the perfectly placed escape pod, and the cold, calculating efficiency of a plan he had been living inside without knowing it. On the morning of day 7 he made 2 portions of breakfast, then made a third, then sat down with the girls. I need you to tell me more about your mother, he said. Selah wrapped both hands around her cup and looked at the table for a moment. Then she looked up. What do you want to know? Everything you said before. That she controls the flow of information between the 12 major powers. How does that work? Selah thought carefully before she spoke. Marcus had noticed this about her. She never answered fast. She always considered. Another trained behavior. Another sign of who her mother was. Every major government in the galaxy believes it operates independently, Selah began. They make their own decisions, sign their own treaties, fight their own wars. They believe they are in control. But they are not, Marcus said. They are. Mostly. Selah tilted her head. My mother does not control them like a puppet master pulling strings. It is more subtle than that. She controls the information they receive. She decides what intelligence reaches which commander. She decides which negotiation offer gets delivered and which one gets quietly lost. She decides which alliance proposal gets seen and which one is delayed until it no longer matters. Marcus stared at her. For how long has she been doing this? For longer than any of the current governments have existed, Selah said. How is that possible? Our people age differently, Selah said simply. Marcus absorbed that. And the 12 major powers. Do any of them know she exists? Some of the very oldest leaders suspect that something sits behind the patterns of history, that the coincidences are too perfect to be coincidences. But none of them have ever found proof. My mother made sure of that. A pause. Until the Velthari. Someone told them, Marcus said, repeating what Selah had said on the first day. Yes. Someone who had access to information only those closest to my mother would know. Selah's voice was controlled, but her hands tightened slightly around the cup. A betrayal from inside. Do you know who? No. She said it quietly. My mother might. She did not tell us before she sent us away. Nara, who had been eating in silence, spoke without looking up. She told us that the betrayer would reveal themselves, Nara said. She said they always do. Marcus looked at the younger girl. She sounds like she was calm when she sent you away. She was, Nara said. She finally looked up. She is always calm. Even when everything is on fire. She says that panic is information you give to your enemies for free. Marcus let that sit for a moment. What is her name? He asked. The two girls looked at each other. We do not use her name outside the palace, Selah said carefully. Because it is dangerous? Because it is power, Selah said. Names are power. She taught us that. If people do not have her name, they cannot summon her. They cannot invoke her. They cannot build a picture of her around a word. She becomes a shape without a label. Harder to define. Harder to target. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood that more than he expected to. On the outer rim, plenty of people operated without real names for exactly the same reason. What do we call her then? He asked. Selah and Nara both said the same word at the same time. The Queen. Simple. Direct. Complete. Marcus poured himself more coffee from the battered pot and looked out the cockpit window at the stars. He thought about what kind of being operated at that scale, controlling the flow of history across an entire galaxy for longer than current civilizations had existed. Not through armies or force or visible power, but through information, through patience, through the invisible architecture of knowledge. It was the most impressive thing he had ever heard. It was also the most terrifying. Why me? He asked. He had been building toward this question for days. She set this up. She placed that pod where my ship would find it. She equipped you for exactly the threats we encountered. She picked me specifically. Why? Selah set down her cup. She watches traders on the outer rim, she said. People who operate alone. People who have survived for a long time without anyone's help. She has been watching you for 2 years, Marcus. That hit him like cold water. 2 years, he repeated. She knows your route patterns, your decision history every time you had an opportunity to take advantage of someone in a weaker position and chose not to. Every time you helped someone without expecting anything back. Selah looked at him steadily. She does not trust power. She trusts character. She was looking for someone who would take two frightened children off a drifting pod without asking what was in it for him. Marcus said nothing for a long time. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly past. He had spent 11 years on these routes thinking he was invisible, thinking he was too small and too ordinary to be on anyone's radar. He had been watched for 2 years by the most powerful being in the galaxy, and she had decided he was worth trusting. He did not know how to feel about that exactly. Part of him felt chosen, seen in a way he had not expected. Part of him felt the weight of it settling onto his shoulders like something very heavy and very permanent. He looked at the two girls across the table, Selah with her careful eyes and her trained composure, Nara with her quiet depth and her ancient gaze. "Okay," he said. "Just that. Okay." He stood up and went back to the cockpit. 5 more days to Anhari Station. Whatever was waiting there, he was going to find out. They reached the edge of Velthari space on day 9. And that was when the second patrol found them. This one was different. Marcus knew it the moment the ship appeared on his scanner. It was not a standard patrol cruiser. It was a Hunter-class pursuit vessel. Smaller than a cruiser but faster. Specifically designed to chase and intercept. Someone had upgraded the search. Someone knew they were close. "Stay down," Marcus said without turning from the cockpit. He did not wait for the hailing signal. He changed course immediately, dropping to minimum speed and cutting the rusted anchor's energy signature as low as the old ship could manage. He killed the interior lights. He shut down everything non-essential. The ship went nearly dark. Selah appeared at the cockpit door. "What is happening?" "Hunter class," Marcus said quietly. "Someone sent a specific search. This is not a random patrol anymore." Selah's expression tightened. "The betrayer. They know which corridor we are using. Seems like it. Can we outrun them?" Marcus looked at his scanner. The Hunter class was fast. His ship was not. "No. Can we hide?" Marcus looked at the scanner again. Then he looked at the space around them. There was a debris field about 40,000 kilometers to the left. Old collision remains from a freight accident maybe 2 decades ago. Scattered metal. Dead engines. The kind of electromagnetic interference that would mess with any scanner. "Maybe," he said. He turned the ship toward the debris field and moved without powering up the engines to full. Drifting. Using minimal thrust. Presenting the smallest possible energy signature. The Hunter class was sweeping in a search pattern. It had not locked onto them yet. Marcus held his breath and pointed the rusted anchor into the debris field. The metal pieces were large enough to hide behind. The electromagnetic interference immediately started distorting his own scanner, which meant it was doing the same to theirs. He cut the engines completely and let the ship drift on its own momentum, threading between pieces of old wreckage like a fish moving through reeds. The Hunter class swept past, 400 kilometers away, 300, 250. Marcus sat completely still. He did not touch any control. The ship drifted. The scanner interference peaked and dropped and peaked again. At 200 kilometers, the Hunter class changed direction. It was not moving away. It was circling, tightening its search radius. It had not found them yet. But it was getting closer. Nara came to stand beside Selah at the cockpit door. She looked at the scanner screen with those wide, ancient eyes. Then she said quietly, "Marcus, there is something in my suit." He turned. "What?" "A pocket. Inside the left arm. My mother told me not to open it until we needed it most." She met his eyes. "I think we need it." Marcus looked at the scanner. The Hunter class was at 170 kilometers. "Open it," he said. Nara pressed a hidden seam in the left arm of her survival suit. A small compartment released. Inside was a device no larger than a coin. Flat. Dark. With a single green light pulsing on its surface. "What is that?" Selah said. "I do not know," Nara said. She said to press the light. Marcus looked at the device. Then at the scanner. 150 kilometers. "Press it," he said. Nara pressed the light. For 3 seconds nothing happened. Then the rusted anchor's entire navigation system rebooted itself, without Marcus touching anything. The ancient computer wiped its own logs and replaced them with a new identity, new ship registration, new flight history, new cargo manifest. The ship became, in the span of 3 seconds, a completely different vessel. The energy signature shifted, not dramatically, just enough. The electromagnetic profile changed to match a registered medical supply ship that operated in this corridor regularly. Marcus stared at the new registration on his screen. The Hunter class swung toward them. Marcus did not move, did not change course, did not do anything that an innocent medical supply ship would not do. The Hunter class hailed them. Marcus answered calmly. He gave the new ship ID. He described the fictional medical cargo with the details that had just appeared on his cargo manifest. He mentioned a supply run to a colony he had never heard of before that morning, which was now listed in his navigation history as a regular route. The Hunter class checked the registration against its own database. It came back clean. The Hunter class moved on. Marcus sat without moving for 2 full minutes after it disappeared from his scanner. Then he turned and looked at the coin-sized device in Nara's hand. She built a complete false identity for my ship, he said. Preloaded onto a device the size of a button, ready for exactly this moment. Sela nodded. She planned for this specific scenario, Marcus said. She plans for most scenarios, Sela said. Marcus looked at the device. How long has she been planning this particular escape route? Sela looked at her sister. Nara put the device carefully back into the arm compartment. She started planning for the possibility of betrayal 4 years ago, Sela said, when she first noticed small inconsistencies in her information network. Pieces of intelligence reaching the wrong people, very small, almost undetectable. She noticed 4 years ago that someone was leaking from inside, Marcus said slowly. Yes, but she could not identify who without revealing that she knew. So she watched. She waited. She built contingencies. Marcus thought about that. 4 years of patience. 4 years of watching someone betray you and saying nothing, building escape routes and false identities and survival suits with scan-blocking technology, placing everything in position, waiting for the moment when the betrayal would fully reveal itself. And then when it happened, sending her daughters off with just enough protection and just enough guidance to get through it. Trusting the plan, trusting him. The Queen had prepared for every obstacle they had encountered, and there were 2 days left. Which meant she had prepared for what was coming at Anhari Station too. Whatever was waiting there, she had already accounted for it. Marcus turned back to the cockpit and restarted the engines. The rusted anchor moved forward. 2 days. Anhari Station came into view on the morning of day 11. From a distance it looked exactly like what the charts said it was. Decommissioned. Dark, a spinning cylinder of old metal with no lights, no docking signals, no signs of life. But as the rusted anchor came within 5 kilometers, Marcus saw it. A single light. Deep in the station's interior. Visible only through one specific viewport at one specific angle. The angle his approach had naturally brought him to. Another detail that was not an accident. He docked manually. The station's docking clamps were still operational, which meant someone had maintained them, quietly, invisibly. For exactly this moment, the airlock opened, what Marcus had expected, a contact. Some agent of the Queen. A handler. A prepared safe house with information and next steps. What Marcus found instead stopped him completely. She was standing in the corridor. Not an agent, not a handler. Her. The Queen. She was tall. Not dramatically so, but there was a quality to her presence that made the space around her feel smaller. Her skin was the same deep blue as her daughter's, but richer, deeper, like the ocean on a clear day when you could see all the way down. Her hair was dark and pulled back simply, without decoration. She wore no crown, no armor, no formal clothing, just a simple dark suit. Practical, functional. But her eyes, Her eyes were the thing Marcus would spend the rest of his life trying to describe accurately to people who had not seen them. They were gold. Not reflective. Not glowing. Just a rich, warm, absolutely certain gold. The eyes of someone who had looked at every possible outcome of every situation and had made peace with all of them a very long time ago. She looked at Marcus for exactly 1 second. Then she looked past him. Sayla and Nara pushed past Marcus and ran to her. She went down to one knee and caught both of them at the same time. And for a moment she was not the hidden queen who controlled an entire galaxy. She was a mother whose children had been in danger and were now safe. She held them with an intensity that was completely at odds with the calm certainty of everything else about her. Marcus looked away. It felt private. After a moment he heard her stand. She spoke to the girls quietly in their own language. Her voice was low and musical and warm, in a way that surprised him. Then she switched to English. "Leave us for a moment," she said. The girls moved down the corridor without hesitation. She looked at Marcus. "Marcus Cole," she said. "That is me," he said, which was a ridiculous thing to say to the most powerful being in the galaxy, but it was what came out. Something shifted at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile. The suggestion of one. "You have questions," she said. "About 40 of them," Marcus said. "Ask the most important one." Marcus thought for exactly 2 seconds. "Why didn't you just send a proper escort? You clearly have the resources. You had 4 years to plan. You could have had a military ship, a full crew, professional protection. Why an outer rim trader in a falling apart vessel?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because a military ship would have been identified and intercepted within the first day," she said. "The betrayer knew my network. Every asset I have that looks like power would have been flagged. What they did not account for was an ordinary man with no connection to me. No visible reason to be involved. No profile that would make anyone look twice." She paused. "The most effective shield is the one that does not look like a shield." Marcus absorbed that. "I was camouflage," he said. "You were more than that," she said. Her gold eyes were steady on him. "You were chosen because you are someone who helps without calculating the cost first. That is rarer than any weapon I own." Marcus looked at the floor for a moment, then back at her. "The betrayer," he said. "Do you know who it is?" "I do now," she said simply. "They revealed themselves by knowing which corridor my daughters would travel. Only 12 people had access to that information. During the 11 days you were traveling, I watched those 12 people very carefully. One of them made contact with the Velthari twice. Both times in ways they believed were invisible." She paused. "Nothing is invisible to me." "What happens to them?" Marcus asked. "They will be handled," she said. "Without violence. Violence leaves echoes. I prefer methods that leave no trace." Marcus believed her. He looked around the dark station corridor, then back at her. "What happens now?" he asked. "For your daughters? For you?" "We disappear again," she said, more carefully this time. "The network needs to be rebuilt with tighter parameters. It will take time. And me?" She looked at him. "That is up to you," she said. "You can go back to your roots, your hydration tablets, and your broken heating coil, and your 11-year life on the outer rim. Everything goes back to normal. You will never hear from us again." "Or," Marcus said, because there was clearly an or. That small suggestion of a smile again. "Or, you can do what you have already been doing for 11 years, she said. "Move through places that power does not look at. Carry things from one place to another. Hear things that people say when they think no one important is listening. And occasionally, when it matters, report what you find to me." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "You are asking me to be part of your network," he said. "I am asking you to be yourself," she said. "The job is the same. The only difference is that now someone is listening." Marcus thought about 11 years of routes. 11 years of delivering things from one place to another, while the big powers of the galaxy played their enormous games overhead. He had spent those 11 years thinking he was invisible. Unimportant. Below the level of anything that mattered. Turns out the most powerful being in the galaxy had been watching him the whole time. And she thought he mattered. He looked down the corridor at where Selah and Nara had gone. He thought about Selah's careful eyes, Nara's ancient calm, two children who had trusted him with the most important secret in the galaxy because their mother had decided he was worth trusting. He looked back at the Queen. One condition, he said. She waited. Someone fixes my heating coil. She looked at him for 1 full second, and then she smiled. A real one, warm and genuine and slightly tired in the way of someone who carries enormous weight and very rarely lets themselves rest. Done, she said. Marcus Cole, Outer Rim trader, small-time delivery man, barely making ends meet pilot of a ship called the Rusted Anchor, extended his hand. The most powerful being in the galaxy shook it, and somewhere out in the dark of space, 11 years of invisible became something entirely different. Final reveal and conclusion, 400 word. Now here is the part that will stay with you. The Queen did not control the galaxy through force. She did not have the biggest army. She was not the richest. She did not sit on a throne that anyone could point to. She controlled it through something far more powerful than any of that. She controlled it through knowledge, through patience, through the quiet, invisible architecture of information. She understood something that every great empire and every military force in history had missed. Real power does not announce itself. Real power does not need to. And there is something in that idea that applies right here, right now, on this planet, in our own world. Think about the people who actually shape the decisions around you, the ones who never make headlines, the ones whose names you do not know, the ones who sit in rooms you are never invited to and talk about things you are never told about. Power has always operated this way. Invisible. Patient. Watching. The Queen in this story is fiction. But the principle behind her is not. And Marcus Cole. The ordinary man. The traitor nobody looked at twice. He mattered not because of what he had, but because of who he was when nobody was watching. That is the real message buried inside this story. You do not need an army. You do not need a throne. You do not need anyone to recognize you. You need character. You need consistency. You need the willingness to help without calculating the cost. Because somewhere, somehow, the right eyes are always watching. And when the moment comes, the most powerful forces in any universe do not call the heroes. They call the people who never stopped being decent. If this opened your eyes to something new tonight, then we did exactly what we came here to do. Before you go, let us recap the 3 biggest things from tonight's story. First, real power is invisible. The Queen controlled an entire galaxy not by being the strongest, but by being the most informed and the most patient. She understood that visibility is vulnerability. Second, character is the rarest currency in any universe. Marcus was not chosen for his skills or his ship or his connections. He was chosen because of who he was when no one was looking. That is something nobody can take from you. Third, ordinary people carry extraordinary weight. Marcus spent 11 years thinking he was invisible and unimportant. He was wrong. Your daily choices, your quiet integrity, your willingness to help, these things are seen more than you know. Now here is what we want from you, and we are going to be direct about it. If this story connected with you, if you felt that pull of mystery and meaning and something bigger than the everyday, then hit that subscribe button right now. We release new hi-fi sci-fi stories every single week, and every single one is built to do exactly what this one did. Pull you in, hold you there, and leave you thinking about something real. Hit the like button if you made it this far. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who would love these stories, and it tells us that you want more of exactly this. Leave a comment with this. What would you have done in Marcus's position? Would you have taken those girls off the pod? Would you have helped them through Velthari space? Or would you have made the safe choice and kept moving? We genuinely want to know. The best comment gets pinned and featured in our next video. And if you want to go deeper, our next video is already waiting for you. It asks a question that is even bigger than tonight's. What happens when the most powerful being in the galaxy makes a mistake? And what does one ordinary human do when the entire invisible structure that holds everything together suddenly starts to fall apart? Click the next video. You are not going to want to miss it. One last thing before you go. Every story we tell here is built around one central truth. Humanity, real humanity, the kind that shows up in small ships with broken heating coils and hot protein rations and no plan except to help. That kind of humanity is the most powerful thing in any universe. That is what Hefi means. Humanity. Seriously. You. We will see you in the next one.